My name is Kristen Nelson, and for my Capstone project, I decided to take the Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist exam, which is administered by the National Strength and Conditioning Association. So, the National Strength and Conditioning Association, also known as the NSCA, provides education and ongoing certification for strength and conditioning coaches in various levels of sports for different age groups. And the certification for the Strength and Conditioning Specialist just evaluates a coach's ability to apply program design, testing, and other parameters in any sport-specific context or different types of athletes. So it requires a full understanding of biomechanics, movement patterns, different types of sports and how they move, different planes of motion, and then be able to design an appropriate program for each. The test itself has two parts. The first part is the scientific foundation, which basically just covers your exercise science components, bioenergetics, biomechanics, things like that, how the body moves, and then some sports psychology, which is actually a new domain that was, I think it was added like in 2020 or something. And then it does cover a bit of nutrition as far as how athletes can best fuel. The second part is a practical and applied domain. This is much more analysis based, so you might get a description of an athlete and you have to design a program for them. You might get a video and you have to identify which muscles are moving eccentrically, which one muscles are moving concentrically, or you might get a video and you have to identify a specific movement dysfunction that's maybe going on and how to treat it. So the content for the exam is all covered in the textbook Essentials of Strength Training and Conditioning, and it is released by the NSCA. This is an extremely data-dense book. It's 700 pages and it has a lot of charts and graphs and just a ton of information. So it takes quite a while to get through. I feel pretty confident in the scientific foundations portion. The practical and applied domain, I am a gym owner, and so I'm relatively confident in that aspect. However, the variability of applying different programs during different seasons for different sports and then different positions within a sport is all quite challenging. So that's something that I found to be a little more challenging than I expected. So as far as my study schedule, I study every day from noon to 5 p.m. I kind of have a window of time in there. I have read the entire textbook and then I'm going back through it a second time. And then there's some online sources that I found that are helpful, YouTube channels. I've used Pocket Prep and Quizlet. So I would say the main things that I've learned as a strength coach, like I mentioned, I own a gym, and so we work all the time with people that come in. They are not professional athletes, they're just regular people, but they want to get stronger and develop greater range of motion and maybe improve some physical features in different ways. And so we focus a lot on biomechanics and bioenergetics and different movement patterns. But then this exam specifically helps you take all of that knowledge and apply it to a sports setting. So for a sports coach who's working with a specific team, you then have to incorporate plyometrics for speed and agility. You have to be able to work on muscle stiffness and muscle strength, tendon strength, so that you can increase that explosive power. And then, of course, incorporate periodization and progression throughout different training seasons and for, different athletes at different levels of play. I would say the main obstacles really are just getting through the amount of content within the time allotted. So really, when it came right down to it, I would say we've had about 6 weeks to tackle this capstone project, and that's the bare minimum of what I would recommend, even for someone with an exercise science background who has hands-on experience. There's just so much to know and there's so much content to cover that it takes at least that long just to get through the information itself. So career application, as I mentioned, I am a gym owner, so we have members we work with every day. We train our coaches. We're focused on enhancing movement patterns for regular people. So reducing lower back pain, strengthening those muscles throughout the kinetic chain, working on injury prevention and joint reinforcement. I am not a dietitian, so we do not provide any hands-on dietary advice, but we do always get questions. People always have questions, and so it's nice to know the basics of nutrition and just be able to provide some good general feedback. Indirect applications, I live in an area where people are very active. We have different events here, triathlons and marathons and things, and I have a lot of friends that train for things, and so it's nice just to know the background in periodization and progressive overload and all those things, and then how to apply them in different sports for different events. So I take my test next Tuesday, and I am trying to be optimistic and very hopeful that I will pass.